my dear JSS1 students. I am your teacher from your school. We are still on the topic we started last week. Hope all is well with you and you are safe wherever you are. Last week I introduced man in space to you. The topic man in space. I started by defining what the space means. And I said last week that the space is an area beyond the Earth's atmosphere in which all the other planets and the stars exist. Usually it is called the outer space because the inner space, no human being have ever been there or been able to dictate what is happening in the inner space. So the area beyond the Earth's atmosphere where all the planets and the stars exist is referred to as the outer space. Then I gave you a little history on how the space travel started. It started by man wondering and thinking, how come about the celestial bodies? By looking at them, some of them at night, like the stars and the moon and the sun by day. So man began to reason, what will I do so that I will be to the moon? Peradventure, there may be life there, there may be hidden treasure there. There are many reasons why man wondered so much about what happened. And I told you as a result of this wondering, they begin to make ways on how they will visit the space. And I told you that the first manned space was on October 1957, a Russian scientist. And engineers entered the space, the first orbit that was launched into space, which I told you that it didn't carry human being at the initial stage. They just sent the orbit to know if it will eventually come back to the Earth. And I want to tell you that before this happened, they have launched many satellites that did not return to the Earth. Very many satellites have been launched. They missed their way coming back to the Earth. Then, this gave them troubles. That is why when they first launched the first satellite called Sputnik 1, didn't carry any animal, it went and come back to the Earth. Then after 1 month interval, Sputnik 2 was launched, which carried now a dog called Laika, which come back after about 108 minutes. It is then that they know that man can go to the space and come back without any problem. Then in April 1961, the first human being landed on the surface of the moon, a Russian scientist by the name Yuri Gagarin, who orbited the moon and eventually come back to the Earth. Then we have other satellites, American satellites. Apollo entered, Apollo 11, Apollo 12, and so on and so forth. Finally, the first man orbit. Then today I want us to look at problems of space travel. On going to the space, there are many problems they encounter. I even listed very few to you last week, but we are going to explain problems of space travel. Before those scientists and engineers were able to land on the surface of the moon and other outer space, they are faced with many challenges. they have a problem of excessive acceleration. Let me explain what this means. Before the American and the Russian scientists were able to launch their spacecraft into the outer space, you know that if you look upwards, you see that the journey they will go is not a journey they will just begin to use. I told you the first time that a satellite or a rocket is not like an aeroplane that uses a compass and uses a map. No. And if you look at where the moon, the stars, and the sun are, you see that it's very far away. They have to conquer. They have to make up, build something that will move with a great speed, so that they can be able to get to where they are going. For instance, the moon is found in the upper atmosphere. It is still on the earth, but the upper atmosphere. More than 300,000 kilometers above the earth's surface. Then how can these people be able to meet up, build something that has great speed, that will cover such distance just under few minutes, or let me call it 2 hours? Because it was recently that they have a space shuttle that were able to stay up to 5 hours in the space. So, excessive acceleration simply means building something that have great speed, of velocity, of movement, not moving with the speed of an aeroplane. An aeroplane doesn't have speed compared with a space shuttle. So they must look for something that has what? Excessive acceleration. They have speed, but when they consider the acceleration they want to beat, eventually they discover that the space shuttle has a very high acceleration. The speed was too much for man to control. So it now becomes a problem. I told you that nobody drives a rocket at the initial stage. Nobody drives them. It is being projected or launched. You launch them from the earth's surface, just like your knockout. It has a gunpowder. When the light is now brought near it, it shoots up and begins to move until it reaches the place where it is going. So this excessive acceleration makes most of the space shuttle that was launched into the space, they were not found. Some of them were lost, and nobody knows where they are. Reason, the speed of projection or the speed of launching the satellite was too much. So when they continue to move upwards, so miss their target in the space. So this is one of the problems encountered by the astronauts in the air. So the speed was too much, and some of them missed their way in the space. Number 2 problem is force of gravity and weightlessness. Force of gravity and weightlessness. What does this mean? Everybody or every science student knows that there is a force which exists at the center of the earth or at the earth's surface, normally called the force of gravity. And this force of gravity is a force of attraction which the earth exerts on any object that is placed at the center of the earth or at the earth's surface. It is defined as the force per unit mass. Force per unit mass on the earth's surface. The force of attraction per unit mass on the earth's surface. Everybody knows that if you throw a stone up now, it will move upwards with great speed. But on reaching a certain height in the air, you will see the stone begin to come down. Nobody pushes the stone down. But you see the speed of the stone, it will eventually begin to accelerate. On reaching a particular height in the air, it will begin to come down. This is as a result of force of gravity. It acts on anything that is placed at the center of the earth, pushing it downwards, and this force acts downwards. It didn't act upwards. How does it affect this space travel? When you project or when you launch a space shuttle, it will shoot up with great acceleration. On reaching a particular height in the air, the force will force it to move down, to begin, because it acts on everything that is across the Earth's surface. This force of gravity will continue to act on the space shuttle until it leaves the gravitational influence of the Earth permanently. That is when it now moves. Because after the Earth's surface, when they begin to enter into the space, the force of gravity is no longer there. But they must overcome this gravity, force of gravity, until the space shuttle now leaves the gravitational influence of the Earth. Then, what is weightlessness? Weightlessness is still experienced by the people and objects inside the space shuttle when they are orbiting the Earth. When the satellite moves round in an orbit close to the Earth, the force of gravity causes it to fall out of its natural straight line path. Let me explain to you using a diagram. Assuming this is the Earth orbit, and this is the satellite you are launching. You know that as this is moving, if it moves like this is a straight line. But remember, the Earth is spherical in shape. It must move this way. It must go this way. So on moving this way, it moves away. It can move away, fall out from its orbit, and find itself in a place that is not the Earth's atmosphere. That is what we call weightlessness. So, when a satellite moves around an orbit close to the Earth, look at the orbit, close to the Earth. This is the Earth. This is the orbit, close to the Earth. What happened? The force of gravity will cause it to fall out of its natural straight line path. It will move away from this straight line path. As it's trying to move this way, it shifts from this line. The satellite falls freely all the time. It does not, however, strike the ground because its initial horizontal velocity causes it to miss the Earth's surface. Instead of it to fall and land on the Earth, they will fall and land on another place that is never the Earth. They find themselves in another atmosphere, which is not what? The Earth. That is why I told you that many space shuttles that have been launched into the space did not find their way back to the Earth. Very many of them were lost in the outer space. They couldn't come back to the Earth because of the force of gravity and their weightlessness. So as a result, such objects within the satellite appear to experience the weightlessness. That is, simply they will fall away from their orbit, their straight line path, thereby moving. They will not, you won't see them in the Earth. They'll find themselves in another planet. It's just like when a plane crashes. Most of the debris of the plane will be found either in an Atlantic Ocean, but some of them didn't even enter the sea. The one that makes its way moving from India to which we didn't even see them in the Indian Ocean, any debris on the Earth's surface, telling you that what they are experiencing in this space is still there for them. So most of the satellites launched couldn't find their way back to the Earth because of force of gravity, which acts downwards. So it tries to pull everything which was moving upwards downwards, thereby making them, when it now beats on them to fall away from their straight line path, they experience weightlessness. Number 3 is radiations in space. Radiations in space. Radiations in space. Radiation is an invisible and extremely dangerous pollutant. It is a form of energy that is emitted as rays, waves, or particles. And some of this radiation come from the sun and the outer space. We are told and we experience that the outer space is a home of harmful radiations. Harmful radiations. And I said that this radiation is an invisible and extremely dangerous pollutant. Just as the sun shines, it releases some of the radiations as it is shining. Likewise, the stars and some other planets, they release harmful radiations in form of rays and waves and particles. And some of them are very, very dangerous to us. High levels of this radiation can cause various types of cancers, genetic mutation, and eventually death. Genetic changes can affect future generation if they occur in reproductive cells. Yes, when some of these radiations occur in reproductive cells, people begin to produce children. Some of them morons, some of them imbeciles, as a result of a genetic changes caused by harmful radiation. And that is why you see some astronauts in the air, they wear protective materials as heavy as, but yet those radiations still enters into their body. So these are problems of space travel. Number 4, re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. When they are launched, can they come back to the Earth? How do they find their their way back to the Earth. Re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Most of the space shuttle launched into the space did not return to the Earth. They lost their way back to the Earth and they continued to circle around the space without finding their way back. This is a great problem. One of the problems that they have not even found a way to solve, even up till now, in space travel. Even today, America is still launching many satellites. Very many of them did not come back to the Earth. As I told you, they didn't find their way when they continue to orbit as a result of what happens here. That is why even the new space shuttle, they are planning to use so that when they enter the space, they will stay very long and do whatever they want to do there. And they are even planning to see if there will be life in the Mars. Nobody has ever done that because of the problem. When you fire or when you launch a satellite, how can it find itself back to the Earth's surface? I told you that most of them lost their way. Finally, high costs involved in the space travel. I told you last week that the thing costs money. It's highly expensive. High cost. Involved. It's something that costs very big money, very exorbitant amount of money is needed. That is why some countries like Nigeria have not succeeded in launching one single satellite manned by them into orbit. It's not what you just go and do. Just as of 2005, when it was calculated, it was observed that the cost of a space shuttle flight is about 500 million US dollars, which is above 50 billion naira in Nigeria. As of 2005, not now. You can go back to 2005. Very many of you in my class have not been born then. Then if you can read back to about 2005, which is more than 10 years or 15 years now, that the cost for a space shuttle is 500 million US dollars, which is equivalent to over 50 billion naira in Nigeria. Do you think is what our country can sponsor? If we equate that amount of money now, it may be that we may be budgeting it about 150 billion naira just to send one space shuttle into space. So you see the high cost involved. So these are the problems being faced in space travel. So that some of you that are planning to launch their first satellite into orbit, which is manned by Africa, you see what is involved, so that you begin to plan very, very well to know if you can sponsor what you tell me you will do. Thank you for paying attention.